Hello, hello, friends. Welcome back. I'm Rav Mo, and this is It Begins With Us, episode number 10. We're looking for that practical wisdom found in the opening passages of the Torah. We've gone through several days so far. Day 4 was the last one, when we spoke about the luminaries in the sky and what it means to be a moon that reflects the sun, and to recognize that we are not the source of our own light, rather, we are merely channeling something that comes through us. Today, we move on to day number 5. We're now moving into the territory of the creation of the birds and the fish. Now, I know we said that we're not going to do a lot of philosophical stuff here, but it's interesting to note that there is a fascinating pattern to the 6 days of creation. You'll notice that days 1, 2, and 3 parallel days 4, 5, and 6. What do I mean? Day 1 was the creation of light and darkness. Day 4 is the creation of sun and moon. Day 2 is the separation of the upper waters and the lower waters into sky and water. Day 5 is going to be, that's right, birds and fish in the sky and the water. Day 3 was the creation of the dry land and the shrubbery and the plantations and the plants on the dry land. And day 6, of course, is going to be the land animals. So you're going to have this wonderful parallel. So today we're going with day 5, the birds and the fish. And we're going to take a particular look at the fish, and something fascinating happens with the fish. And that fascinating thing is called blessing, bracha, an idea, a term that's thrown around quite often in religious circumstances. A blessing, I give you blessings, I make a bracha, a blessing over food. There's lots and lots of blessings. And the question is, what is blessing? How does it work? And how can we bring some more of it into our lives? So let's take a lesson from the fish, and let's go ahead and read about day number 5. So it says, "Vayomer Elokim yishritzu hamayim sheretz nefesh chaya va'ova ofeif ala aretz al panei rakia hashamayim." And God said, "Let the waters teem with crawling things, every living thing and bird that flies over the land, over the heavens." Okay, Vayivra Elokim es taninim hagadolim. Then God created these massive sea monsters. That is a whole other idea and subject unto its own, which we will not get into. Yes, kol nefesh hachaya haromeses asher shartzu amayim leminehem, and all the living beings that crawl and that slither in the water, according to their species. Yes, kol of kanaf leminehu, and all the birds of a wing, according to their species. Vayar Elokim kitov, and God said it was good. Fantastic. So God says, let there be fish and birds, and then there were fish and birds, and it was good. Now here's the passage that will be the center point of our discussion today. Vayivarich osam Elokim lemor, and God blessed them, saying, Peru revu milu esamayim bayamim. And God says, let the waters, well, he first says, be fruitful and multiply. That's the bracha. The blessing is, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, va'of yara be'aretz, and the birds should increase in the land. Now the essential bracha here is on the fish. The fish have to be blessed. And the question is, what is the relationship between blessing and fish? And here's where we return to a principle which we outlined previously in this series, which is that the first time you see any concept appear for the first time in the Torah, it's like the DNA of that concept. It is the archetype, the paradigm of everything else that's going to come forward after that in the Torah and in the world. So the first time we see the word blessing, bracha, is specifically with fish. And the question is, why? What's the relationship between fish and blessing? Well, that's an excellent question, and let's spend a little bit of time discussing that. But in order to do that, we need to know what blessing is. What's a bracha? I'll give you a blessing. So there are a few different contexts in which we use the term blessing, right? When we bless God, right, we make a blessing over food. So I'd say the typical way of thinking about it is we're saying thank you. A blessing is thank you. But of course, in other circumstances, we use the word blessing to mean something totally different. Right? I want to give you my blessing that you can marry my daughter. That's not saying thank you, right? You say to somebody, I wish much blessing unto you. Well, that's also not question of thank you. So what is a blessing? What is blessing? Well, the word bracha in Hebrew means a flow. It means an increase and a flow. So the word bracha means a blessing, but a similar word, right, etymologically is brecha, which means a stream, right? It's a connection. It's something that flows in. So the concept of a bracha is as follows. A bracha is the ability to channel a flow from a parallel reality, not the physical reality that you and I know, to bring in more flow and more success than would be naturally possible. Let's explain. There is a passage when we're talking about the story of Isaac, of Yitzchak, that he sows one and he reaps 100. And that's our kind of working definition of bracha, is that in the physical world, there is the law of conservation of matter and energy, according to Newton, which says that matter and energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So the amount of effort that I put in is exactly what I receive. Now, it may come with rain and it may come with earth, and so, our labor and our efforts may pay off handsomely, right? We might make the right investment, but that potential was always there in the system. The way that bracha works is you didn't have that potential. There was flow and there was potential and there was energy coming from somewhere else, and we're just tapping into it. A good way of thinking about it would be like this. If the natural world works like a battery, where whatever juice is in the battery, that's how long the appliance is going to run, then bracha is like plugging that appliance into the wall. It's feeding from an external energy source, and as long as you're plugged in, it can keep running. That's bracha. Bracha is the ability to bring more energy and more light and more success into my life than would be naturally possible. That's bracha. However, in order for bracha to exist, there have to be certain conditions. Since bracha comes from an alternate world that does not abide by the laws of this physical universe, if we begin to subject the system that we want bracha to flow into, if we begin to subject the system to the constraints of the physical world, then bracha can't exist. So, for example, in the Talmud it says that when a person gathers in their wheat, it says first you should make a bracha, a blessing on the wheat, that the wheat should be numerous, but do it before you count the wheat. Why? Because as soon as you count the wheat, then you are subjecting it to measurement, which is the physical limitation of our physical universe. Once you measure something, that's it. You've trapped it in space and time. A good way of thinking about this, we invoked the metaphor previously of quantum mechanics, and I think this worked beautifully here, right? Is the following. We said that observation has the power to affect the things around us, because in quantum mechanics, we say that there are certain things like electrons and photons, which, before they are observed, act like a wave. It means they act like a probability. They could be anywhere in space. But as soon as you observe it and measure it, you collapse that wave, that probability, and you say, no, it's only right here and right then. The same is true with the physical world. Before you measure something, it's subject to a probability in which bracha can flow. There, in that hidden state, the state where you haven't yet measured it, then there can be bracha. And as a result, the Talmud says, bracha only comes on something that is hidden from the eye, because the eye is the mechanism of measurement. It's what allows us to capture something in space and time and say, that's the thing and nothing else. Now that's fantastic when you're taking a photograph, when you're actually, speaking to your accountant in terms of how much money you actually have. But when you want bracha to be instilled and injected into that system, don't count it. As they say, don't count your eggs before they hatch. Not just because you might be setting yourself up for disappointment, but because as soon as you count it, you're removing the possibility of bracha. Okay, that's our crash course in what a bracha is, a blessing, right? Every time we want bracha to exist in the world, we need to do it in a hidden way. So now we can start to unlock the reason for why bracha first shows up in the Torah by fish. Fish are interesting creatures. They do not exist on land. See, in the open land where we human beings dwell, you can see for miles and miles on a clear day. Everything is cut and dry, and you can define things easily. But try opening your eyes under murky water. Water you can barely see several feet in front of you before you see nothing. It is a world that exists underneath the ground, and so even symbolically, it represents a world that is hidden from the eye. See, the sea, under the water, is the perfect place for bracha to occur. And thus, we invoke the imagery of fish in several places when we want to talk about bracha. So, for example, when Yosef, is blessing his two children, Ephraim and Manasseh, he says, Vayidgu larov, right? They should increase, multiply like fish. They should multiply like fish. What a strange thing to say. Why like fish? There's lots of things that populate quite quickly. But the answer, of course, is because fish are hidden from the eye. Fish are that which exists below the surface. And therefore, anytime you want to give somebody a bracha, you say, I want to give you a bracha, and the way in which it should be done in secret, privately. Now that we've defined bracha, now that we've understood why bracha first shows up in the Torah, specifically with fish, now we can begin to apply it in our own lives. For those of you who don't believe in bracha, fine, fair enough, take it or leave it. But for those who understand that there is a power of blessing in the world, how can we harness that power? Well, the first step, of which there are several, don't worry, there's more than just this. But the first step is to do it quietly, to do it in a way that's hidden. Don't do your business dealings out in public. There's a well-known successful business person who said that one of his ironclad rules is he never talks about a deal in progress. Only until it's signed, dotted, crossed the T's, money's been transferred, then he'll celebrate, and then he'll tell the world. But before that, why? Why subject it to the measurement and restrictions and limitations of this physical world? As soon as you publicize something, as soon as you put it out into the open, it then becomes captured. You collapse the waveform. There's no longer a possibility of bracha. So don't do things out loud. As much as you want the honor, as much as you want the respect, it's more worth it for the bracha not to do it. The same applies in many instances in our world of constantly publicizing everything that we do on social media. Here's a word of advice. Don't publish your ultrasound photographs on social media. That's hidden. There's something hidden inside of your stomach. Okay, and fair enough, the ultrasound technician is taking a look at it with an x-ray, but you want the whole world to be able to see this fetus that's not quite yet brought into the world? This human being that hasn't yet seen the light of day? By the way, for those of you who are trying to nitpick in the words that I'm saying, I am not yet weighing in on what is the status of a fetus. Is it a human being? Is it a potential life? Is it a life now in Jewish law? That is a way more complicated topic, and you should consult a very, very learned rabbi in that area for the answer to that question. But nonetheless, it's something that's hidden. Why would you want to expose it? Why would you want to bring that into the world? Earlier we spoke about the ability of the eye to affect your surroundings, whether positively or negatively. And there is the idea of the ayin hara, the negative eye, the evil eye. Now, we said that one of the ways in which that can manifest is simply that when you start telling people about your successes, then you invite criticism and negative energy from other people. But another way of understanding this, the evil eye, is that as soon as you bring something out into public, you simply take away the possibility of bracha. And that's another way of understanding the evil eye, just something that is no longer subject to bracha. So, in your business dealings, don't do it in public. In your deepest, most intimate secrets, the potential for life, don't do it in public. In your relationships, I know people are very into public displays of affection. I can do whatever I want, where I want. I don't care who's looking. I'm so proud of me and my partner. Yeah, but do you really want the most intimate relationship that you could possibly have to be exposed to the wider world? Now, this is whether or not that's called appropriate or lewd, or I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about how much bracha, how much blessing can you have in that relationship if you do it quietly, if you do it in a hidden way. If we take what the sages are teaching us, which is that bracha can only exist on something that is hidden from the eye, then why? Why take something that's a work in progress, something that you want there to be as much flow and energy and success as you could possibly hope for? Why would you bring that out into the exposed physical world of restriction and limitation? So my friends, today's lesson is brought to you by fish. Be like a fish. Do things under cover. Do things under the ground. Do things in a way that are hidden so that they can be a receptacle and a conduit for bracha, for blessing. And here's my blessing to you, that you should be able to take this message to heart and to forego and resist the temptation to want to get credit, to want to show the whole world that you're on the path to success and that you're doing so amazingly. And instead, make sure that if nothing is set in stone yet, if the deal isn't closed, if the baby's not born, then keep it quiet, keep it hidden. And in that way, you will invite much more bracha into your lives. Thanks for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for next time.